gaan buiten nog aan.
I'm from deputy representative from here, from the house.
Yes, I thought I recognized your face.
We've been in the meetings together.
Yeah, many online.
Yes, and that's the problem when you can realize
even if I know that some of the attendants are still in the Committee of the Region because there's a plenary session very shortly. My intervention has to be very short so that we are in time and our guests, especially President Jambon, can meet other commitments. So, Minister Alsina, the floor is yours.
Molt bona tarda, benvinguts, good afternoon, welcome to all of you, and a special thanks to the President of Flanders, Mr. Jambon, for being here with all of us, and also to the President of Bratislava, Juraj Droba. We had the opportunity to meet there not far ago from now, and thank you so much also for joining us in this event. Thank you to the head of the delegation of the Catalan government in front of the EU institutions, and thank you to all the authorities that join us for this conversation. We are very much excited to have all of you here with us today. So I wanted to be brief, but share with you key pieces of information about why we are here today and which are the main conclusions around this benchmarking analysis that we are presenting. So the objective of this study that united us and we are presenting today is precisely to, in the framework of the Next Generation funds, to present a piece of work that this network created a few months ago, a little bit more than a year ago from now, Regions for EU Recovery, has been putting together to present how do we think that the Next Generation funds can be better distributed to secure the main objective of these funds precisely. So we are confident that this unique study provides us with useful information for the European Commission, useful information for the European Parliament and all the other decision makers here in Brussels and also in our member states to make these funds that are a great opportunity for all of us even more better tailored to the objectives that they follow. So we are extremely happy to host this session at the delegation of the Catalan government in Brussels, next door to the EU institutions, and precisely one day in which the Committee of the Region has its own plenary. And indeed, I wanted to say congratulations to Mr. Karl van Lowe, that has been just elected President of the European Alliance Group in the Committee of the Regions. And I also wanted to thank all the regions that took part in this piece of shared work that we are presenting today. So someone said once that we cannot miss a good crisis, right? And indeed, I think President Kennedy once said that in a crisis, we need to be aware of the danger, but we also need to recognize the opportunity that this crisis creates. And we will all agree that the COVID-19 offered us an opportunity to deal with a double crisis, a crisis that it has been an economic crisis, it still is, and also a health crisis. And because we are not now in 2008, this time around, the European Union was well aware of the danger of this economic recession and this economic crisis, and recognized also, as President Kennedy said, the opportunity that came together with us. So, as you know well, the EU leaders in July 2020 stated that this was a challenge of historic proportions and also that we needed an unprecedented effort altogether to recover from that. And these are exactly what the Next Generation EU funds try to achieve. And also I want to say that, as we all know, the centerpiece of these Next Generation EU funds are precisely the Recovery and Resilience Facility, right? This tool that allows the Commission to support the EU member states to recover together with the execution of a series of reforms that align the priorities of the countries with what we call the twin green and digital revolutions. So, to make a long story short, more than 30 regions came together around this Regions for EU Recovery initiative, and we worked together with a clear objective, that is to strengthening the role of the regions in the decision-making structures and the governance model behind all these funds. And I want to say that, as we announced during the second joint event of this initiative in December 2021, all the members worked together and prepared this benchmark study that we are presenting today. And here we are. I wanted to be very brief, but share with you a few highlights of the results of this benchmark analysis, and more precisely, very briefly, 3 key conclusions that we achieved all together. The first conclusion of this benchmarking study is precisely that it has been a limited involvement of regional governments in the design and the implementation of these transformative projects around the next generation funds. Indeed, fewer than half of the regions that took part in this benchmark study directly negotiated the design of the projects that have been funded by the next generation funds. Regions should be, and we all agree in the room probably about that, the core piece of the management and implementation of these national recovery plans. And to do so, the justification to do it this way is because the regions have been responsible for a lot of the competences that are connected to the projects that we are developing, but also connected to the fact that we have the crucial knowledge of the stakeholders and also the good experience of managing previous EU funds before very successfully. So this makes us very strong when in this report we say that unlike the other permanent funding instruments, the next generation funds consider too much the member states the only valid partner for the design and implementation of these funds. Indeed, we are, in that regard, we are very pleased that the European Parliament agrees that local and regional authorities should be much involved, and that they discussed that and approved an important decision connected to that just a few days ago, indeed on the 23rd of June. A second conclusion of this benchmark analysis is that all regions that participated in that, except Aland, Flanders, and Lower Austria and the Lazio in Italy, believe that the multi-level governance and the subsidiarity principle have been not well respected enough in the design of these funds, not following properly one of the main principles included in the Treaty of Lisbon. So that's an important conclusion that you can see, and it is shown through different data that is well explained in the framework of this study. And of course, the report also shows that the regions that participated are concerned about the consequences, right, that this will have in the capacity to absorb properly those funds, to absorb those funds as part of the budgets and as part of the projects that we are moving forward, and also the consequences that this has because not having the good governance structure, sometimes these funds, this money, cannot be directly applied to the most transformative projects, the projects with more potential to be transformative for our economies, precisely for this twin transition. A third conclusion, and the last one that I wanted to share with all of you today, of this benchmark study is precisely connected to the fact that almost all regions involved in this report stated that the reports, the next generation funds does not cover properly the regional need, the specific economic and social needs of the regions that participate in this plan. Indeed, that the the centralized calls that the member states are doing, in a lot of occasions, limit the exercise of the competence of the regions, with a few exceptions of Allen and Flanders and a few more. But that's the main conclusion of the big portion of the regions that are part of this study. So, connected to that, the report also states that, indeed, in an ideal world, the best of both worlds should be combine the application of the subsidiarity principle that took place in the previous cohesion policies and the previous EU funds, but together with that, to be able to apply a simplified requirements in terms of bureaucracy that the next generation funds put in place. So we take the good part of the less bureaucracy that these funds imply, but returning to the previous application of the subsidiarity principle. So in conclusion, if we need to sum up what this benchmark study is saying, is that we can efficiently speed up the absorption of investments for transformative projects while connecting them to real needs, as well as ensuring that these funds will be well distributed in all corners of our territory if we involve much better us, the regions, the territories that need to have a bigger role in this. I want to say that these next generation funds should use the collective intelligence of the regions, the collective intelligence of all of us, based on the experience we have. We will send this report to the EU institutions, and we really hope that they will react to ensure that the multi-level governance and the subsidiarity principles that are an important piece of how the European Union works and should work in the future can be improved and can be better applied, also connected to the next generation funds. So I will finish here, but I wanted to thank you again, the President of Flanders and the President of Bratislava, to be part of this event, and I think that the floor is yours next. Thank you so much.
Madam Minister, Mr. President, dear guests, it's a great pleasure for me to be here with you today and present the outcomes and recommendations of the benchmark document that was the result of our network together with Mr. Minister President Jambon and Madam Minister Alsina. When our network, Regions for EU Recovery, was created, I welcomed the initiative very much, as we felt to be left behind from the early stage of the preparation of the Recovery and Resilience Facility in Slovakia. And I found out that we are not alone in this situation, and that it makes sense to join forces in Brussels to create some pressure and get more visibility. And I would like to thank Catalonia for doing great work with coordinating the activities of our network. In my brief remarks, I will try to present not only the case of the Bratislava region, but also of the other regions facing similar challenges with RRF, and to sum up the key issues identified by the survey. Involvement of regions in the RRF, why is it important? At the EU level, my region has been promoting for many years three key topics: the Metropolitan Agenda, Beyond GDP initiative, and last but not least, the multi-level governance and partnership principle. When the RRF has been introduced in the regulation without strict obligation to include local and regional governments in the preparation and implementation, we knew it was going to be a problem. Last year, I was a rapporteur of the Committee of Regions' opinion on the involvement of local and regional governments in the preparation of the new programming period 2021-2027. The document clearly demonstrated that it is not possible to create effective strategic documents that will drive the implementation process through the whole programming period without the full involvement of local and regional authorities. It called for the full respect of the partnership principle and its implementation, not only within the cohesion policy, but also under the new instruments financed by Next Generation EU, such as the Recovery and Resilience Facility. The benchmark document of our networks demonstrates that the multi-level governance and partnership principles in RRF have not been respected in many EU member states. There is a bunch of regions that were not involved since the beginning in the design and later in the implementation of the RRF, and as a consequence, existing problems produced by their exclusion have even worsened. History has taught us that the centralization is not the right answer for the development of territories. As a result of absence of multi-level governance and partnership principles, the specific territorial, economic and social needs are not being considered in the RRF strategic plans and calls. Less than half of the regions surveyed negotiated the projects directly. Most of the regions do not have a central role in the design of the calls, although they participate in calls organized by the national governments. I'm convinced that the RRF must be implemented from the bottom up. And if we are to implement the projects by 2026, the calls must be prepared in collaboration with regions. The problem in Slovakia is that our government doesn't want to accept the project pipelines of the regions in RRF. For instance, in area of primary and secondary schools, we have knowledge of territories and we have the data, but the national level is creating their own conditions for eligibility of projects, and despite the fact that there is a strict deadline for the implementation, it doesn't want to take into consideration our real priorities in the regions. In general, the regions report not only low involvement in preparation of investments, but also a lack of real involvement in the implementation of the much-needed reforms. Therefore, the European Commission should ensure that fundamental principles such as multi-level governance and subsidiarity are consistently respected and implemented. I personally regret that these principles are still not fully embedded in EU policies and programs, and we, the regions and the cities, have to constantly reiterate them and fight hard to make our voices heard. Specifically on cohesion policy, regions express concern regarding the growing trend in the paradigm shift from cohesion funds regionally managed towards larger centralized allocations which are programmed and implemented at national level. And this is also the case in Slovakia. We are therefore trying to strengthen the ITI instrument and better align the funds with priorities that are identified in the regional development strategies. In terms of synergies between Recovery and Resilience Facility and other EU funding, given their different functioning, timing and governance, the main issues are the risks of overlaps in these programs. Therefore, in terms of strategic orientation and implementation, continued interaction and coordination are needed between cohesion policy and RRF. In conclusion, I would like to thank once again to Catalonia for excellent coordination and to all regions who participated in this network. This is a great example why it is important for regions to join forces at EU level when the common interests are at stake. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me, before I bring my conclusions to the study, let me give two preliminary remarks. First of all, my congratulations to my dear friend Karen van Lauwe, a young elected now at the at the Committee of the Regions. And then I would say, Victòria, it was so kind of you to nominate me with the title of President of Flanders. It's our dream. We hope all that it becomes reality in the near future, but I'm still a humble Minister President of the region Flanders, the region in the Kingdom of Belgium, but stating for 60% of the population, 70% of the GDP and 85% of the export figures, but a real humble Minister President. But ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank my friend Gorka and his staff here at the Catalan delegation for organizing this event and inviting me to be a part of it. I know that they have put a lot of work into this benchmark study the past few months, and I'm happy to present the results alongside with my Catalan and Slovakian colleagues, Ms. Victòria Alsina Burgués and Mr. Juraj Droba. The Regions for EU Recovery initiative has once again created momentum to highlight a very important message: to reaffirm the competencies and powers of all regions in the recovery strategy, enhancing their role as main actors for growth, the twin transitions and social cohesion. The benchmark study shows that many regions in EU member states were insufficiently involved or not at all involved in the design and the implementation of the recovery and resilience plans. I too share that concern, even though that Flanders was heavily involved in the design of the National Recovery and Resilience Plan in Belgium, both regarding governance and content. But as I said in the beginning, we are 60% of the population, 70% of the GDP, so I think it's difficult to make a Belgian plan without the help of Flanders, so our situation is a little bit particular. At the early days of the COVID crisis here in Flanders, we set to work very quickly on drawing up a Flemish recovery plan. At the end of September 2020, I presented the Flemish recovery plan to the Flemish Parliament. Flanders finished its homework in good time and was therefore able to respond quickly to the federal government's initiatives, which in turn responded to the guidelines from the European Commission. During the period from October 2020 to the end of April 2021, intensive consultations took place between Belgian various governments and draft plans were prepared and discussed. At the end of April 2021, we submitted the National Recovery and Resilience Plan to the European Commission. About 2 months later, it was approved by the Council, but even now, intensive discussions are ongoing. I attach great importance to share Flanders' best practice, but even for us, the discussions with the European Commission did not go as smooth as we would have liked and as we would have needed. Also, beyond the recovery plans, significant challenges for our role as strong European regions remain. We see a general tendency of the EU institutions to insufficiently recognize the role of the regions in the European Union. Regions are the closest to society and are in an excellent position to take note of their interests. European projects and policies are implemented in the regions, and it is in our regions that most expertise is concentrated. Too often, the design and the implementation of European policy and EU policy making in general is still based on a centralized approach. The European Commission should act upon its promises. It should better involve regions in its work, it should help regions to increase their role, and it should both recognize and treat regions as core partners in EU policy making and in the implementation of the Recovery and the Resilience Facility. We, European regions, must continue our joint efforts to achieve greater involvement of the regions with legislative powers within the multilevel governance framework of the EU, especially with regards to the economic and social recovery. As a firm supporter of the Regions for EU Recovery initiative and as partner to all EU regions, Flanders will certainly continue to voice this important message. It only remains now for me to thank you all once again, and I'm looking forward to our future joint efforts to strengthen our regions within the European Union. I thank you.
So that has been so far the presentation. Do you have any question? Now is the moment. No questions?
I'll speak loudly. I am the deputy representative here of the delegation of Catalonia, and we have been involved in devising new ways and new instruments to call the attention of the European Commission, especially to this tendency to ignore regions and to focus only on national states. And I'm also asking as a professional, what will we do as regions for EU recovery and European regions in general, if the European Commission continues to ignore us and continues to prioritize working directly with member states?
Yeah, I think what we can do, if we have to defend, I think, a democratic, justifiable position, we have to use democracy to make our point to the EU Commission and the EU Council. And therefore, I think we have our representatives in the Parliament, and we can put pressure on our own governments. In the case of Flanders, 2 of the 3 parties that form the Flemish government are also represented in the federal government, and I think they have to play their role. So, to have in a democratic process, I think we have to use all democratic possibilities that are there, and I think in the European treaty is foreseen that they have to involve regions in a lot of, and they did it also a lot of times when they comment on the budgets and the performances of the member states. In the case of Belgium, they always give also their comments on the regional thing. So we are recognized in that appreciation, I would say. We are recognized as a level that they have to comment on, and this dated already from many years ago. It was a tradition, but we see on new plans, on new initiatives, that they forget the regional level. So there are examples where they apply it, and there are the newest evolution is that they don't, and I think we have to use this discrepancy to point out in a democratic way. That means in all levels where we can put force on and could put pressure on the Commission.
Unfortunately, I think we are often seen as a nuisance in the way of the work of the European Commission, and they see it as a trouble or somebody on the way who is standing in the way, not to have things achieved and done. And unfortunately, I'm going to speak on behalf of Slovakia now. This is also happening at the national level, that the central government prefers to make their green table decisions from the office of the government without considering the regions or the municipalities. And I think, well, we are actually on the brink of going into the strike. I don't know how it's going to look like, because I don't want to stop providing our services. But recently the central government made a new tax law which will take away a significant portion of the budgets of the cities, villages and regions. And they will give it in another form to citizens, but it's a very irrational decision, so we are considering a strike. And at the European level, I think we should still give trust to the Committee of Regions, and maybe appeal to the new chairman that he needs to really aggressively lobby the European Commission for the voices of the regions to be heard, because this is happening over and over. We, at some point, you know, it's good for our egos to feel that we are important. In reality, we are not.
I will just add here that we need to make clear that this is not only about the legitimation of how these funds are distributed, we are talking also about the efficiency, because at the regional level we have the competences, we have the experience, we know well the stakeholders, and talking about Spain in this case, Catalonia accredited for a long period of time in previous funds, when the funds are competitive and and we can directly recall them and compete in Brussels for those funds, the proportion of the funds that we get is bigger than the proportion that we should get in terms of population and GDP. We should get a little bit less than 1.5%, and we are able to obtain more than 2.5%. But in this case, in the case of the Next Generation Fund, this had real consequences, because in the previous year, in 2022, we reached less than half of the percentage that we should get considering population and GDP. So for us, this governance system, it has real consequences in terms of, as I said, not only legitimacy, but also efficiency and the final quantity that we have for investing in those transitions.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Is it working?
Yeah.
I'm from a region next to Juraj Droba region. It's called Trnava region, and I have 3 remarks, maybe tasks. First one, I think that the topic and all this work have been done. I have to make a great thank you, because at first we are not alone in the fight or in the procedure, that we are really decision makers. We are really politicians in our villages, cities, and region. And I think that the topic and the situation was great, because during the crisis management, it was a lot of central politicians. They act with the motto, "Que c'est moi," the state is me, and all or everything in crisis management was in our country, in Slovakia, like developed or this decision making going from central level. Second remark, what I like to raise is what Juraj Droba said, that now we can stick together much more, because and there is my task or ask. I'd like to know if you can find a procedure, have to set a great number of regions or great number of local and sub-local decision makers, that this topic is really important for European projects themselves, not only for this case study, because I think that we going like 3 or 5 steps back in a lot of things and a lot of levels, how important regional decision making is, not only in the situation of crisis, but as I briefly looked at your results of your study, there is really important stick together more regions, more decision makers, more regional stakeholders, let's say, because we need to show the power not only to European Commission, because Juraj explained one situation in one small country in central part of Europe, but he is talking about his own government. And now we are like having, we have a lot of problems how to explain that we are much more effective, much more closer to the citizens. And I know after your 3 speeches, after this study, that we are not alone. It's the first very good message, but the ask is, I repeat it, how we make together, not only through the Committee of Region, but we have to find another solution, maybe another initiatives, how to make it much more, because of citizens, much more effective, that our voice is going to be louder, maybe in the European and central governing level. Thank you.
I think the initiative was taken at the beginning of the crisis. There was the letter that the regions for EU recovery sent to the European Commission, and if I'm not wrong, that was subscribed by 34 something in that order, 34 regions. That was in plain COVID period, and it's at least the ambition of the Flemish government to bring a lot of these regions also together and to build a really strong network with these regions, with the ambition to press on European decision making, not in one of the institutions of the EU, but just as a network of regions with legislative power, and because I think when you take all these regions together, you have a substantially part of the European population, and I think this is our force.
I think I summed it up in my previous comment, and I agree with Joseph. We simply need to somehow start the crisis management because we are not doing well at the moment.
So thank you, and I know President Jambon, that you had to go because previous commitments. And let me say before finish that we invited our friends of Scotland. So we consider it our colleagues within the European Union, and we hope we will not so longer to be back to the European Union. Okay, obviously. So thank you very much, and see you.